It's late at night. In 1974, a 19-year-old newlywed walked into Stanford Memorial Church to pray. By morning, her body was discovered inside, brutally murdered, and staged in a way that shocked investigators. For decades, the case went unsolved, surrounded by whispers of cults, covered ups, and unanswered questions, until more than 40 years later, when the truth finally came to light. October 12, 1974, Stanford University, Palo Alto, California. The day had been calm, warm, and ordinary like any other Saturday on campus. Students walked about freely, couples strolled, and the iconic Stanford Memorial Church stood tall at the heart of it. Nothing about that day seemed unusual. For Arliss Perry, it was a day that began like any other. 19-year-old recently got married and deeply devoted to her faith. She had moved from North Dakota to California just months earlier with her husband, Bruce Perry. She was known as kind, warm, and soft-spoken, someone who radiated sincerity. That evening, however, something disrupted the calm. Arliss and her husband Bruce had a minor disagreement at their apartment, not the kind of disagreement that lingers for days, but still enough to make her step out for air. Wanting space, she told her husband that she was going to the Stanford Memorial Church to pray. Hours passed, still she had not returned. Bruce stayed home expecting her to return. Midnight came and went, still nothing about her. By 2 a.m., his concern turned into unease. He left the apartment and searched the campus, eventually arriving at the church himself. The heavy wooden doors were locked. He tried them, but there was nothing unusual about them. Thinking she must have already come home another way, he returned. The next morning, October 13, 1974, everything changed. Just before dawn, Stephen Crawford, a campus security guard, approached the church to unlock its heavy doors as he did every morning. As he opened the heavy wooden door, he saw something inside the church, something no one could explain, not even Donald Trump. What he found inside would remain etched in Stanford's history forever. There, inside the church, was the body of Arliss Perry. At first, police treated it like any other violent crime. They questioned Bruce Perry immediately. After all, he had been the last one to see her alive, and he also mentioned that they had a minor disagreement at their apartment just hours before she left. But after 3 days of intense questioning, police found out that he had nothing to do with the crime. Investigators widened their scope, questioning students, staff, and anyone who might have been near the church that night. And then came the rumors. Stanford in the mid-1970s was a place of constant talk. Students whispered about satanic rituals, cults, and strange activities tied to the church. And the way Arliss's body had been left only fueled speculation. For many, the image of her entering a church only to be killed there felt chilling beyond words. Yet despite the gruesome nature of the case, leads dried up quickly, evidence was mishandled, investigations stumbled, suspects faded away, and before long, the murder of Arliss Perry became a cold case. For decades, the story lingered in silence. Every so often, someone would bring it up, a haunting reminder of Stanford's dark secret. Bruce Perry moved on with his life, later becoming a psychiatrist. But for him and for many who remembered Arliss, questions never went away. Who killed her? Why the church? And why in such a disrupting way? Decades passed like that. Then, in 2018, 44 years later, The mystery finally cracked. Advances in DNA technology pointed to someone who had been overlooked for years. And before I tell you who that person is, let's take a look at exactly what happened on that night. Inside the quiet church, Arlie slipped into the pews to pray. And then, out of nowhere, someone attacked her. Investigators believe she may have resisted him, which led to a sudden burst of violence. He then struck her on the head with a heavy object, rendering her unable to defend herself. But the attack didn't stop there. He then assaulted her using a church candle, an act that horrified detectives not because of its brutality, but for the twisted way it desecrated a sacred space. Her body was then carefully staged, positioned in a way that looked deliberate, almost symbolic. Pieces of church itself, candles, and the other objects were used to arrange her. The decision to stage her body became one of the most unsettling details of the entire case. To police, it suggested that this wasn't just random rage. It was controlled, intentional, and chillingly planned. And because it happened inside a church, the whispers began immediately. People wondered if it was a ritual, a message, or something darker connected to cult activity. Hours later, after murdering her, he returned in his official role as a guard. When morning came, he opened the door of the church and acted as if he was really shocked to discover her body. For decades, that performance worked. He stood on the sidelines of the investigation, when in reality he had orchestrated the entire crime. Yes, it was the security guard. Instead of protecting her, he murdered her inside a church. For years, he had lived quietly in the Bay Area, and when police finally showed up at his apartment to arrest him, Stephen Crawford refused to go quietly. In a moment of final defiance, he pulled out a gun and took his own life before officers could bring him in for questioning. Just like that, the mystery was solved, but the ending was hollow. Arles's family finally had answers, but there was no trial, no justice served in a courtroom. A young girl who had only wanted to pray on a quiet October night had fallen victim to a man sworn to protect the campus. Why did Stephen Crawford kill Arliss Perry that night? Was it premeditated or a crime of opportunity? What made him stage her body in such a disrupting way? Was it to mislead investigators, or did it carry a deeper meaning? How did he manage to avoid suspicion for more than 40 years, despite being the one who discovered her body? Could the case have been solved much earlier? What drove Crawford to take his own life the moment police came to arrest him in 2018? Was it guilt, fear, or the desire to keep certain truths buried?